You were taught to search for power in loud places. You looked for it in speeches, in headlines, in the rituals of applause. But the real throne doesn't sit on a stage. It hums inside the systems that shape how you feel before you think and what you think before you speak. The richest don't shout. They set the temperature. They adjust the emotional weather and let your reactions make the noise. You wake each morning inside someone else's timetable. Your devices greet you with curated urgency. Markets open like temples. Dashboards tell you how to feel. Greed today, caution tomorrow. A city glows, and because it glows, you believe it lives. But the light is just a permission slip. It blesses the day's transactions, pre-approves 1,000 invisible decisions. The calm voice you never hear is the one that wrote the menu of choices long before you arrived. Here's the paradox that traps attention. The more chaotic the world feels, the more carefully it has been arranged. Panic is scheduled. Euphoria is rationed. Volatility becomes a word for a profitable heartbeat. Meanwhile, you imagine freedom as the number of options on display. But options are not freedom. Options are choreography. They are the many doors leading to the same room. You sense it in the way a product becomes a lifestyle, how a symbol becomes a gate. A watch does not tell time, it tells a hierarchy. A university is not a building, it is a passport office. Even generosity becomes a mask. The philanthropist buys forgiveness wholesale, then resells it, retail, as a tax deduction. You suspect something colder beneath the warmth. You are right. The old book said power is taken by force. The new empire knows better. Power is taken by feeling. If you can set the mood, you can set the outcome. If you can tune the fear, you can price the future. This is why markets care more about confidence than truth. Confidence is the cheap fuel of a complex machine. Truth is the expensive maintenance. But what if power could be exercised without ever touching you? What if it could move through your incentives like a river moves around stones? A nudge here, a friction there. Your path bends without your noticing. You call it efficiency. They call it design. And in that silence, the truth whispers. Think of a chessboard where the pieces love their positions. The pawns are proud to be pawns because the story of the pawn is glamorous now. The bishops are thought leaders. The rooks are infrastructure. The king never raises his voice. He raises his yield. He raises his runway. He raises the cost of dissent until dissent looks like self-harm. The hook is not that the game is rigged. The hook is that you long for the rigging to be real, because certainty, even unfair, feels safer than chaos. The architects understand. They give you rituals, productivity, upgrades, quarterly optimism. You play your role. You sweat your small battles. The war remains silent. The war is fought with humidity, not thunder. Emotional humidity that swells desire, softens doubt, and makes the lock fit the key. Here's the part no one dares to admit. Most people do not want freedom. They want relief. Freedom is a burden. Relief is a service. The rich don't sell freedom. They position relief as status. Join us, they say, and your confusion will be handled. The fee is attention. The contract is lifetime. You stand in the city at dusk and feel something like gravity tighten, an invisible governance. Every sign is a suggestion. Every suggestion is a price. Power has no need to argue when you've already agreed to its mood. You didn't hear a voice command you. You felt a temperature guide you. You complied because it felt like your idea. And in that silence, the truth whispers. The truck doesn't carry goods. It carries stories. Every morning it unloads explanations. Who deserves what? Which virtues are fashionable? Why scarcity is a moral lesson and not a design choice. You have been told that belief is personal, but belief is mass-produced. It rolls off lines supervised by algorithms, packaged as entertainment, and delivered as common sense. The first lesson of obedience is narrative. Change the story, and the cage becomes a classroom. You will defend it. You will decorate it. You will call it home. In the factory, shame is cheaper than soldiers, and aspiration is a longer leash than fear. If people police themselves, the guards can be photographers. But what if poverty is not a lack of effort, but a function of architecture? The factory makes you reverse cause and effect. The rich are rich because they are good. The poor are poor because they are not. Accept this framing, and the hierarchy becomes a moral geometry. Disagree, and you are not merely wrong. You are sinful. The brilliance of this design is that it hides the designer. You cannot protest a ghost. You notice the slogans. Meritocracy. Ownership mentality. Grit. Like spices, they improve the taste of any unfair meal. The foremen smile from billboards and podcasts. They have the same message. Obey the structure that feeds you. Revere the structure that fails you. If it fails you, it is you who failed it. And in that silence, the truth whispers. The psychology is simple. Humans crave belonging more than accuracy. Belonging lowers the cost of being wrong. Accuracy raises it. So the factory sells identities, not ideas. Join a tribe, and your mistakes become badges. Join a tribe, and your doubts become disloyalty. The workshop of consent welds status to worldview. You won't change your mind because to change it is to abandon your place at the fire. Here's the part no one dares to admit. Outrage is a product too. It is measured, forecast, and allocated. Outrage keeps you energetic enough to click, too tired to organize. The outrage of the left, the outrage of the right. Both are raw materials. The factory refines them into ratings, votes, donors, and distractions. Meanwhile, the blueprint remains untouched. And yet, the truth is darker. The factory doesn't merely produce agreement. It produces silence. It teaches you what not to say in order to remain employable, agreeable, desirable. It hands you the vocabulary of safety. You learn the password to pass through checkpoints of opinion. The cost of speaking plainly becomes the cost of exile. Most people pay it in advance. You ask, who benefits? Look for what is exempt from criticism. Look for which institutions fail upward. Look for which people can be wrong forever and still be promoted. There you will find the owners of the factory, often smiling, often generous, always protected by narratives that present them as necessary. And in that silence, the truth whispers. Consent is not forged once. It is maintained daily. It is a maintenance schedule of culture, education, and distraction. If consent wobbles, adjust the curriculum. If consent wavers, adjust the feed. If consent breaks, unleash a spectacle. The spectacle is both a fire drill and a purge. It drains the discontent, names a villain, closes the loop. The factory returns to humming. The product, legitimacy, ships on time. Value is a theater. The ticket is belief. You enter, and the stage instructs your eyes to make a number holy. Price becomes a ritual object, carried from room to room as proof of meaning. The watch, the address, the invitation, these are not objects. They are keys that open networks, reduce friction, and purchase forgiveness. The few understand this. They do not buy things. They buy leverage baked into symbols. Scarcity can be printed like posters. Limited edition. By invitation. Founder's Circle. The gate makes the courtyard look expensive. The courtyard makes the gate look wise. You learn to crave the gate. You learn to love the velvet rope more than the hall behind it. Because the rope promises the oldest drug, belonging without question. But what if illusions are not lies? What if they are architecture? A mirror in the proper place doesn't deceive you. It organizes your gaze. So do brands. So do credentials. They aren't false. They are frames. The frame becomes the price. The price becomes the law. Here's the part no one dares to admit. Markets need mystery. Certainty collapses margins. Mysteries stretch. Is them. The small unknowns. How many pieces? Who else is invited? What whispers at the top? These are the oxygen of luxury, the hormones of prestige. The fewer answers you get, the more you pay to stand closer to the question. And in that silence, the truth whispers. The psychology is ancient. Your nervous system still scans for status and safety like it did in the village. You measure yourself in reflected eyes. The few weaponize this reflex. They turn it into dashboards and waiting lists, into auctions that make you compete with yourself. Every bid you place becomes a confession. I need to be seen from closer. The strategy is elegant. Own not just production, but the rituals around production. Own distribution. Own the dictionary that decides what rare means, what trusted means, what premium means. If you can define the words, you can mint the coin. Influence the tastemakers who influence the benchmarks that influence the budgets. When meaning drips from the right ceiling, everyone brings a bucket. And yet, the truth is darker. Illusions compound like interest. Today's premium becomes tomorrow's norm, creating hunger for a new ceiling, a higher altar. The game doesn't end. It accelerates. It must. Otherwise, the audience would notice the back wall is painted on. Inflation of prestige keeps their eyes away from the edges of the set. You ask, what is real value then? Utility is real, yes. But in human systems, perceived significance out-earns utility. A painting you cannot use buys you access you cannot measure. A membership you do not need buys you a future favor you cannot price. The math is emotional. The currency is narrative. And in that silence, the truth whispers. The few understand the final conversion. Meaning into money, money into autonomy, autonomy into time. Time is the ultimate luxury. Not the watch, not the yacht. Time you control. Time free of permission. Illusions are not the goal. They are the bridge. They turn belief into schedules no one can interrupt. After that, silence is easy. Silence becomes the loudest signal of all. A crisis appears and a story follows. This sequence is not accidental. It is an operating procedure. The story arrives quickly with its assigned villain, measured outrage, and approved solutions. The anchors ask ritual questions. The experts provide ritual answers. Between these lines, advertisements bloom like sponsored flowers. You feel informed and therefore safe. But safety was the point, not truth. The few do not censor everything. They curate the frame. They manage the lighting. They allow enough argument to keep the theater busy and enough agreement to keep the exits locked. Healthy debate becomes a thermostat, warm enough to keep you inside, never so hot that you burn the stage. But what if dissent is not a threat, but an asset? A noisy rebel occupies attention that might otherwise find the wiring in the walls. Give them a stage, measure their clicks, monetize their fury. The apparatus learns their edges, adjusts targeting, sells them products that feel like weapons and function like pillows. The rebel becomes a genre. Dissent becomes a subscription. Here's the part no one is to admit, even resistance can be managed by the same logic that manages loyalty. If your anger can be scheduled, it can be sold. If your bravery fits a brand, it can be taxed. And once a story has a soundtrack, it also has an owner. And in that silence, the truth whispers. The moral cost of awakening is exile. You see the narrative leash and it burns your throat to keep wearing it. Your friends enjoy the comfort of a coherent script. You begin to speak in questions, and questions are not good company at dinner. You seem disloyal not to people, but to the image those people rented from the story. This is why your clarity hurts you at first. The script rewards confusion with belonging. It punishes lucidity with distance. Control here is maintenance. If the markets panic, a reassuring voice appears. If faith collapses, a spectacle restores it, a hearing, a scandal, a public sacrifice. Look, the spectacle says, the system cleans itself. But the cleaning is cosmetic. It changes costumes, not roles. The same owners hold the copyrights of the story and the set. And yet, the truth is darker. The story does not merely guide perception, it erases alternatives. A choice that isn't televised becomes unthinkable. A path that isn't priced becomes impossible. The very grammar of reality is narrowed. Fewer verbs, safer adjectives. You learn to speak inside the cage and call it eloquence. You ask, how do I live now that I see it? You step back, not into apathy but into observation. You become unreadable. You cultivate calm in the presence of spectacle. You respond late. You verify. You refuse to rent your emotions to the day's agenda. You talk less. You choose your nouns with care. The script needs your urgency to breathe. Do not donate it. And in that silence, the truth whispers. The final room is quiet. There are no banners here, no chants, just models, thresholds, and clauses that outlive administrations. Control matures into protocol. It becomes tax codes that crown capital over labor. It becomes defaults that make the chosen path feel natural. It becomes philanthropy that launders power through gratitude. The goal is elegance, overdetermined behavior so that orders are unnecessary. To rule without raising your voice is to price disobedience until disobedience feels irrational. Raise the cost of exit, lower the reward of protest, make conformity efficient and rebellion expensive. You don't need to forbid a choice if you can delay it, confuse it, or insure it against itself. People do not abandon dreams. They postpone them into extinction. But what if your own emotions are the last frontier? The game becomes unwinnable until you master the thermostat inside your chest. Emotion is not the enemy. Its timing is. Power requires heat that can be stored and released with precision. Outrage must be rationed. Joy must be private. Fear must be audited. You do not discard feeling. You discipline it. Here's the part no one dares to admit. Love can be governance. Loyalty is leverage when it is scarce and placed wisely. Give access, not affection. Give trust slowly, then honor it with borders. The few understand that the kingdom's first wall is personal. If you cannot control your schedule, someone else will write your ethics by appointment. And in that silence, the truth whispers. Strategy becomes architecture. Own the rails, not the cargo. Own the update, not the device. Own the language, not the argument. When disputes arise, let procedure win. Procedure is the soft weapon of cold governance. Polite, neutral, and impossible to hate without appearing childish. A tyrant may be toppled. A policy is eternal. Application is incremental. Say less in meetings. Spend more time on contracts than speeches. Reward quietly. Punish rarely but predictably. Default to distance. Emotional distance preserves judgment the way winter preserves grain. You will be misunderstood. You will be accused of being cold. Accept this. The temperature of power is not warm, it is clear. And yet, the truth is darker. The aim is not domination, but invulnerability. If control over others is necessary, it is only as a scaffold for control over self. You seek a position where the noise cannot reach you, where your time is yours, your attention unpurchased, your choices unbroadcast. You are not indifferent. You are unharvestable. The resolution is unsatisfactory by design. There is no victory parade. Only the soft click of a door you now know how to lock from the inside. The city keeps glowing. The factory hums. The theater sells out. You walk among it all with a new posture, slower, quieter, harder to read. You do not argue with the weather anymore. You bring your own climate. And in that silence, the truth whispers. You have seen how design feels like destiny, how stories become cages, how value is a theater and consent a product. You have learned that the quiet is not peace, the quiet is policy, that the richest do not push harder. They cool the room and let gravity do the rest. If you've come this far, you already feel the pattern. Curiosity became disillusionment, then clarity. You stepped from participant to observer, from noise to signal, from appetite to awareness. This is not the end. It is a change of altitude. From here, the city looks different. The ads look smaller. The timer on your chest ticks slower. Stay with this. Choose clarity over spectacle. Choose design over distraction. Each week, we will meet you in the silence and sharpen what the world tries to dull. Your judgment, your distance, your leverage. Subscribe, not for content, but for consciousness. This is not a channel. It is a quiet rebellion against the choreography of emotion. If you are ready to keep seeing deeper, to rule without raising your voice, step into the silence with us.